playing with us today, so I am turning it off.
There you go.
So doesn't that have all the makings of a superhero story? Forces of good and evil, feats of the unmanageable, the little guys, the hero or the heroine coming to the aid of the little guy. So I want to first look at what I said I would like to explore with you, and that is the God of our understanding. The Pharaoh said, "Who is that God that I should let the Israelites go?" Isn't that an age-old question? How many of you still ponder, is there a God? And if there is a God, what is God? Is it man? Is it female? How many of you still ponder that? How many of you feel pretty secure in your understanding? Okay. Well, as we evolve in consciousness, we have the ability to have that deeper understanding, and not only have metaphysical understanding, but the great mystics taught us to surrender to the mystery. That some things cannot be explained by the intellectual, but can only be experienced. How many of you felt so connected to life that surpassed all understanding, or had a moment of such exquisite beauty and contentment that surpassed anything you could probably grasp your head around? Anybody? Right? When the sunset takes our breath away, the smile of a baby, not saying a word to someone you love or hold dearly, and feel just this connection and this welling over, or a smile that touches you from someone in the supermarket that you don't even know. So let's look at the God of understanding that was portrayed in this movie, which is also the portrayal of the understanding of that time period, the time period of the Old Testament and the people of that time. God was seen as an anthropomorphic being. An anthropomorphic means we give something that is non-human or non-human human qualities. Well, if I'm smart, then God is super smart. And if I can bench press something, then God must be super strong, right? So we kind of may do the opposite. We say we are made in the image of God, which really means that we are a divine idea created out of the allness of God. So we do the opposite. Let's make God in our image, right? So in that time period, God of the understanding was anthropomorphic, was male, had probably the white beard, was muscular, and the God of their understanding was also a God who got involved in the personal day-to-day and was a dispenser of good and bad. If you were good, you didn't have to fear God. But if you weren't, that staff turning into a snake, you just watch out. And then we see the patriarchal machoism. Yeah, your staff can be turned into the cobra, but look at mine. Right? So now we have God being a competitor. We laugh. But how much of that view of God was part of your upbringing, of your understanding of God? Anybody else fear God?
Yeah.
Right? And we see that belief still alive in our consciousness when we hear things or say things like, I'm such a good person, I can't believe this is happening to me. You know, I tried to live a life, I'm kind, I'm generous. God, does God even care? Does God even know I exist? Or we say things, God, take the illness of my son away. Now we have this understanding that there's this presence and being that is greater than us. And the Fillmores, actually, Jesus is, and there's historical evidence of Jesus. Now, the parables were written in story, but Jesus is the equivalent in the New Testament as Moses was. Moses helped to move us into a monolithic thinking of one God, because at one time there was a God for the sun, there was a God of the seas, goddess of the seasons, and that was just the way they understood because their science and their understanding was what it was. We in society have evolved, right? Medicine has evolved. Our thinking has evolved. Your iPhone is outdated as soon as you walk out of the store, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times we don't want our belief systems around, whatever it's religion or spirituality, to shift. And so as we look at that, Jesus introduced, even though people didn't understand, the divinity of humanity. I am divine. And so did other spiritual masters like Buddha and Yogananda and Mary Magdalene. And then, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore said this, in How to Let God Help You, and I quote, "We are studying spiritual science," and that was the science of that time period, "to get a broader conception of God, rather than holding to the view that God is a personal being with parts like humans, a being subject to change and capable of varying moods. Though personal to each one of us, God is it, neither male nor female, but principle." And what is principle? God is principle, unchangeable life, love, intelligence, and substance of being. Principle does not, or God does not occupy space, neither has it any limitations of time or matter, but is timelessly, as is the underlying cause out of which comes forth all true ideas. Although principle is formless, it is that by which all form is produced. It is through the power of our thinking and feeling nature that we shape and impact our world. Science shows that. They have studied plants that were spoken to with compassion and kindness and compared it to plants in the same room grown under the circumstances, and yet these thrive more. We see the molecules of emotion that Emoto studied, and we see that in war-crimed areas, in crime where the violence is high, the crystallization of the water is not only is the water murky, but it is tight, whereas where they speak compassion and kindness into that same water, and the crystallization of that water changes. And modern day mystics also speak of that one power in one presence, which is mysterious, which is not an anthropomorphic being. Greg Braden talks about the divine matrix. Lynn McTaggart talks about the field. Deepak Chopra talks about the infinite potential. And so does Carolyn Mace. And so, how does that help us? How does that understanding help us? Well, it also shapes our beliefs. So what is a belief? We hear the Pharaoh speak in the movie. The slaves are mine, their lives are mine. All that they own is mine. I do not know your God, nor will I Israelites go, and Moses replies, "Who are you to make their lives bitter and in hard bondage? Law shall rule man, not by the will of other men." So when we see this set shape, we ask, what law? What is law? What law is Moses, and at that time the best of his understanding, speaking of, versus the will of human consciousness? So I want to make a distinction between human-made laws, which are really rules, and what is steadfast, unchangeable, spiritual principle and laws. Because there is a clear distinction. So the rules of humankind, they can change. It's like our speed limit. In some areas, we put 25 miles an hour. It's okay to travel that. In some states, on the highway, you can go 80 miles, and in other states, it's 65, right? The tax code changes. There's a law that says that if you steal, there will be a penalty in each state. That varies, right? And they are unchangeable. And these kinds of laws are made to create order and some kind of structure. But these laws also reflect the consciousness of those who are creating the law and the collective, right? So we see the laws of the day were very patriarchal in nature as we look at that. And what is spiritual principle? Spiritual principle is, there's one principle according to the Fillmores and the modern day mystics. There is God is. Whether you call it God is, infinite potential is, divine matrix is, so on and so on. God is. It is changeless. It is the vibrational energy force from which all was created. It's hard to wrap your head around. And from that, we can have spiritual laws and premises. If God is all there is, and all of creation comes from that one source, then I too, second principle of unity, must be divine, and so shall everybody else. It speaks to the principle of oneness. Even though I don't see where I end and you begin, what I am holding and thinking, feeling, and action has an impact. Did you ever know somebody was upset that was close to you and they never spoke a word? Does that happen? We feel the vibration of that energy. Now that oneness does not mean sameness. For how we experience the divine within us and the wisdom of us, we come in many shapes, sizes, and colors, but at the core we are made of the same divine star stuff. But we lose sight of that. And if we look at the laws of humankind, how many of those laws are out of touch with those spiritual principles? So we look in the 13th century, as we looked in this video clip, and we see that there is a hierarchy. Some are more privileged. If you were born into the wealthy caste system, then you were fortunate. If you were born into a lower caste, like the Israelites, then you were destined to be a slave for the rest of your life. Some people have worth, and others don't have worth. And they inform our individual thoughts. Now we see that as 13th century, but are any of those beliefs at work in our laws of humankind today?
Yes.
They're all around us. They're a little bit more sophisticated, are they not? But they do represent the consciousness of what? Hierarchy. The consciousness that forgets, oh yeah, we're all one. Oh yeah, if God is all there is, we live and breathe in an abundant universe, there's enough for everybody. But we have laws that represent lack and not enoughness. Laws that represent power and control instead of shared right? And so I'd like to share with you how these laws may show up, or rules that you hold on to show up in your own personal life. Do any of these sound familiar? Or someone you might know. Maybe it's not you. You know, my best friend tells me I should stay in my marriage because my husband is a good provider. Yet, when he drinks, he becomes belligerent and speaks to me with disdain. What law or belief? Is that spiritual principle? Or is that some belief system that's wrapped in forgetting this individual's divinity and the vastness and abundance of God? Or how about this? My employer barks at me all day and treats me disrespectfully. But you know, jobs are hard to come by, therefore I have to suck it up. Again, where is the power within that individual? Are they waiting for somebody outside of themselves to save them? Are they believing in a universe that is not abundant? Are they believing that they're not enough, so therefore they can be treated in a way that is less than? Or it is okay to put immigrants in cages without water, food, clean clothes, and places to shower and sleep, because after all, how will we teach them not to cross the border stealing our jobs? Because after all, there's not enough. We call it Mosaic law. How present is it today? Or, when we see injustice happening, we take on that eye for an eye mentality. We forget the divinity of an other, or that the suffering that they are experiencing in their awakened state is justification for us to act violently as well. I will vilify. I will fight you. Now, we all know anger arises when we see injustice. How many of you feel when you are not treated fair, or you see others not being treated fair, feel angry? Anybody else besides me? And so we have a choice, because every feeling is divine and is there to give us information. But now what we do with that anger is ours. Do I get my snakes that are bigger and throw them at somebody? Or do I stand for what I believe I want to see in the world and create that? And I've shared this quote before of Mother Teresa. I will never attend, do not invite me to a rally to fight against war. But if you have a rally to stand and to bring ideas of peace into the world, I will be there. So, my friends, I just ask you, what is the God of your understanding that is at work? Do you believe in your divine nature, your divinity? Do you embrace both your humanity and your divinity, as we talked about last week in the Superman series? Where are you operating from beliefs where you were told by someone, this is how you should think? But every fiber of your being tells you, it is not mine. It doesn't resonate with the truth of me. And so as you go through your week, I ask, in this moment, in this present awareness moment, as I breathe in and I breathe out, I choose. I choose fear or I choose love. I choose to believe in spiritual principle of the oneness of life and all that is, and the divinity of me and everyone else. And what I am doing in action and word, is it in alignment? Or must I, as the Course in Miracles says, choose again? So I invite you into this space of thinking, and know that each one of us has a belief system. Maybe this is something that you resonate. Maybe this challenges you to the core. Nevertheless, put it on as a seed of awareness, because I am open to what is alive within you. And know that each one of us have that belief system, and right outside of that is our adjacent possible, where we're willing to stretch our belief to match the truth. And then beyond that is the adjacent not possible. And that's where people feel threatened, they're being stretched too far, and they take it instead of as an idea to ponder, but as reason to attack, to judge, to be flight, fight, or freeze. Namaste. Have a blessed week, my dear friends.